Okay, here we go. Hello, Jacksonites, and welcome to my latest Tremors video. No beating around the bush with this. God, I'm rusty at this. My schedule is so badly out of whack. Welcome to my newest Tremors video. There's going to be no beating around the bush with this one, as promised. Half at least. Sorry. It was actually my birthday celebration with my wife and her family yesterday, so obviously I was occupied there. Today, I will be reviewing the most underrated installment of the entire Tremors franchise, as far as I'm concerned, and one that a lot of people are just seemingly just kind of iffy on. And it's a shame. Today, I will be reviewing Tremors the Series from 2003. Tremors the Series, I've discussed a fair bit on my channel. I did review it as part of my original Tremors review series back in 2018. And me and Trevor Boy ranked all 13 episodes of the show. And of course, we included it in our ranking videos. But I've said already, I kind of regret not full-on reviewing this show as part of my 2021 Tremors review series. I think Trev and I would have had a lot of fun talking about this together, and it's a shame we decided to skip over it. That's probably my biggest regret, honestly, because it would have flowed that much better into the franchise overall. But whatever. At least I'm making up for it. So, yes, indeed, Tremors the Series. The show debuted back in 2003. It ran from March 28th to August 8th, 2003. And it ran for a very short run of only 13 episodes, unfortunately. The production for Tremors the Series went like this. Tremors the Series was produced at the same time as Tremors 4, and the show was mistakenly believed to be a replacement for the canceled Farscape show. I have no idea why, because Farscape looks like it's a completely different thing to this. This led to a massive uproar from Farscape's fan base, despite the fact that the production for Tremors the Series had begun several months prior to the cancellation of Farscape. Brent Maddock and S.S. Wilson, the co-creators of the Tremors franchise, had penned up a Tremors-based TV series as far back as 1993, under various titles such as Val and Earl Monster Hunters, Tremors the Lost Monsters, and Tremors the Adventures of Val and Earl. Many plot and monster ideas from this failed television series would be recycled for Tremors the Series, as well as apparently the original, some of the original script elements for Tremors 2, such as giant shrimp, flesh-eating insects, and Shriekers attacking an amusement park with Civil War musket weapons being used. Production took place at Fox Studios' Baja Peninsula facilities and on locations in nearby Rosarito, Mexico, on the same set as Titanic. All of Titanic's remaining sets were destroyed to make way for this show's production. The pilot episode of this show premiered March 28th, 2003, and broke records for the Sci-Fi Channel, becoming the network's highest-rated debut episode for a new series, and being one of the most watched events in the history of the channel. While the show would continue to perform well, the number of views per episode drastically declined over the ensuing months, failing to hit Farscape's projected primetime air slot demographic numbers. Why? Further episodes also began to receive increasingly negative criticisms from fans and viewers, further bringing down the show's ratings. The network began losing money due to budgetary concerns, and the show was eventually deemed too expensive to continue, eventually being canceled after one half season of 13 episodes. Oy. According to Maddock and Wilson, the channel absolutely hated, quote unquote, the episode Shriek and Destroy and initially refused to air it. Why? Cutting 6 minutes of its runtime before airing it after the show had already been canceled. Most of the other episodes were then aired out of order despite continuity and had to be re-edited last minute for the show to maintain continuity. Maddock and Wilson still do not know why the episodes were aired in a seemingly random order. How the episodes were aired, or what the intended order is Feeding Frenzy, Shriek and Destroy, Blast from the Past, Hit and Run, Project 412, Ghost Dance, Night of the Shriekers, A Little Paranoia Among Friends, Flora or Fauna, Graboid Rights, Water Hazard, The Sounds of Silence, and The Key. However, in the show, or like in its original run, it was aired as Feeding Frenzy, Ghost Dance, Night of the Shriekers, Blast from the Past, Flora or Fauna, Hit and Run, A Little Paranoia Among Friends, Project 412, Graboid Rights, The Sounds of Silence, The Key, Water Hazard, and then finally Shriek and Destroy. I've said this before about this show. It just kind of seems like Sci-Fi was intentionally sabotaging this show because it's, to me, it's absolutely asinine that they would air a show that's completely different to a different kind of show that I guess was really popular. Let me look at not Water Hazard. What's the show called? Farscape, real quick. Farscape. Um, hmm. I mean, yeah, I guess it was really popular. It did get abruptly canceled after what was originally planned for 5 seasons. It was canceled after its 4th season, ending the series on a cliffhanger. Okay. That does kind of suck, but still, Farscape is a completely different show to Tremors the series. So why would you try to market Tremors the series to fans of Farscape? Like, why? That just kind of, again, it seems like you're setting yourself up for failure if you're trying to, hey, Farscape fans, your show gets canceled, but look at this. Here's another show for you to watch, Tremors. I don't want to watch Tremors. I want my damn Farscape. What the fuck? Um, and yeah, there apparently is really no given reason why Tremors the series was aired out of order. Let me see if I can look it up. Shit. Yeah, there's really no answer that's given. Um, as for why it was canceled, I guess that is really the reason. It was just because for some fucking reason it wasn't reaching Farscape levels of popularity. It was deemed too expensive because for that reason. Like, why? This would not be the last time. Well, kind of. It would, but it also would not be the last time that in 2017, Sci-Fi announced that it had ordered a pilot episode for a new TV series uh, in the franchise. Kevin Bacon was hired to reprise his role as Val McGee from the first film. Uh, and it seemingly was going to do a Halloween 2018 type thing where it was a sequel to the original Tremors movie, yet it ignored everything after the first film for some reason. Um, but that show never came to be. Um, the first 2-hour episode was filmed, and it was gonna be originally a 10-episode run. I do remember when its trailer dropped, but for whatever reason, this show just never came to be. I don't know. There's part of me that says that's probably for the better, but there is also a part of me that would like to see at least like that pilot, if they were just to take that and throw it on DVD, just say here's what could have been. It would be interesting to see what that was like. I would not be surprised though that once that trailer dropped, because you do see a shot of the newly redesigned Graboid, it looks nothing like the original Graboid. So I imagine that there is a lot of backlash from fans saying, this does not look like Tremors. What the fuck are you doing? So maybe they got cold feet and just said, okay, never mind. I don't know. Probably never will know, unfortunately. But back to Tremors the series. So that's the production on the show. As far as my personal history for the show goes, I don't really think I've ever explained this. So I was aware of the first three Tremors movies. I had just recently seen Tremors 2 and 3 with my dad on TV, as I've stated in my Tremors videos. And they're at my grandparents' place. They live in a cul-de-sac, and in that cul-de-sac, there's a house I used to have a friend there. His name was Austin. Austin and I were fairly good friends. He and I we liked Batman, we liked Teen Titans, we liked the Iron Giant. He and I were pretty decent friends. And he had a TV in his room, and he would always have stuff playing. So I sat down and I was having a snack, and I came across something called Tremors on TV. So I thought, oh, is this those movies I saw with Dad? And the clip from the episode that I saw, it was the ending of, or not the ending, it was a scene from A Little Paranoia Among Friends, episode 8, I believe. Sorry if I'm a little all over the place. I actually do have a fair bit to say about this show. Yeah, A Little Paranoia Among Friends, episode 8, where somebody gets bitten in half by a graboid, and you see the bloody lower torso of that dude who got bit in half. And I also saw a couple scenes from Project 412. Bert trying to rescue Christopher Lloyd's character from being impaled by this little horn-faced, four-legged dog cat monster. So I was like, what is this? And Austin said to me, this is Tremors 4. There's a fourth Tremors movie? And this confusion is what led to me really disliking Tremors 4 when I first saw it, because I thought Tremors 4 was what I saw on TV. And I saw Tremors 4 like 4 or 5 years after this occurred. But it wasn't until it was around 2009 when I started using the internet when I discovered that not only is there 4 Tremors movies, there was also a show. So I was like, oh, okay, that must be what I saw at Austin's place that one time. Um, Sadly though, Tremors the series was not available on any form of physical media. For several years after cancellation, the series was not available on any form of physical or digital media, and only a handful of episodes could be found on low quality bootleg recordings. Half of the show was finally added to iTunes in September of 2008, but many episodes were still missing, leading to speculation that some episodes were permanently lost. It was later made fully available on Hulu and through Amazon.com's Unbox video download service in late 2009. But on March 9th, 2010, Universal Studios Home Entertainment finally released the complete series on a 3-disc DVD set, and this contains all 13 episodes in their original production order with no bonus features. The set also contains the re-edited version of the episode Project 412 with the alternate beginning and ending scenes. Although all episodes are maintained in their original qualities, fans met the DVD set with negative criticism due to its lack of any bonus features, lazy menu screens, and poor cover artwork. I'll agree with the poor cover artwork. For some reason, you could easily just had a graboid coming up under the screen to get the people in the Jeep, but for some reason they just use some kind of random monster that you never see in the show, sadly, because it's a cool looking monster, but we never see it in the show. We don't even know what the hell it's from, so why not just use a graboid? I of course do own the show. I didn't buy it though until around 2015 because this was when I had just started my tenure of 3 months living alone while my grandparents went on a trip around the US. So I was by myself for 3 months. And I got myself some money for my birthday, so I decided to finally, at least at the time, the fuck? Alrighty then. I think I just got spammed by a porn bot. That's something that I probably never thought you'd hear in a Tremors video. Anyway, so yeah, I bought Tremors the series around 2015 because I finally really wanted to complete the Tremors collection, at least at the time. This was right before Tremors 5 had come out. That wasn't the first time I'd seen the show in full, though, because around 2013, I believe, I binged all no, not 13, the first 10 episodes of Tremors the series on a website called Crackle. Probably a lot of people are familiar with it. Crackle is a website that's a little bit like Tubi. They would have free shows and movies on that you could watch online, but they had ads. But I didn't care. This show really captured my attention, and I was like, "Oh, finally! I can actually like watch some full-on episodes of this show in some form or fashion." So great. Um, and I had a good ass time watching them. When I bought the show on DVD, I rewatched the first 12 episodes yet again. I have this thing with Tremors the series. I love this show so much that I get into it, but I don't want it to end, so I can't bring myself really to watch the 13th episode. It doesn't help that the 13th episode is actually pretty bad. As me and Trev have stated, we think it's the worst episode of the whole show. Um, but I really do dig this show. As I've stated, it's both one of my favorite TV shows. Like it's high on my list of my favorite TV shows. And I do believe that it's the most underrated installment of the Tremors franchise. Because in the Tremors fan base, Tremors the series, for some reason, just kind of seems to be either ignored or just people don't talk about it for some reason. And I've never understood why. It does a lot of really great things for the Tremors franchise. And it also breathes some new life and gives the Tremors franchise some new stuff to chew on. And it gives it more to its mythology. So I've never really understood why seemingly so many Tremors fans just aren't really aware of this show. It's not like it's expensive. I bought my copy of the show for like 15 bucks, and last I checked on Amazon it's like $12, so it's not like it's expensive. And it is now readily available, so people really just have no excuse not to watch it. Now I am sure that there are other fans of this show out there, but still it just kind of seems like it's the one that gets left behind, unfortunately. But thankfully, there are people like me who champion this show's existence and say that, hey, you should go check it out. So, with all that being said, the plot to this show, it takes place where Tremors 3 Back to Perfection left off, and it follows the residents of Perfection Valley attempting to coexist with an albino graboid named El Blanco, left over from Tremors 3, while dealing with problems caused by failed government experiments, mad scientists, or ruthless real estate developers, while also dealing with various monsters that break out in Perfection Valley, or various assignments that Bert Gummer is sent on to kill other monsters. The only returning cast members is, of course, Michael Gross as Bert Gummer, as well as, what's his name? Robert Jane as Melvin Plug, appearing in 2 episodes, Feeding Frenzy and Water Hazard. And there's a couple more notable cast members. We have Dean Norris, who was, what's his name? DEA agent Hank Schrader on Breaking Bad, of course. And we have Christopher Lloyd in 3 episodes of this show, of course, being Doc Brown from the Back to the Future trilogy. He was in Ghost Dance, Flora or Fauna, and Project 412. Project 412 being his first appearance. The plots of each episode, bear with me, this will probably be the longest section of this video. There are 13 episodes still, and each plot is kind of short, but still, just bear with me. Episode 1, titled Feeding Frenzy. Tyler Reed, played by Victor Brown. I think this is the only thing he ever did. The new owner of Desert Jack's Graboid Adventure arrives in Perfection and must help Bert Gummer determine why El Blanco is eating far more than he should. Meanwhile, Melvin Plug is trying once again to buy out Perfection, this time to erect a strip mall called Melville. Twitchell nearly forces Bert to kill El Blanco. Dean Norris plays the character W.D. Twitchell, who is a Department of the Interior officer. But Bert spots a weird glinting light and shoots at it instead, destroying the device that is driving El Blanco insane with hunger. The goon Melvin hired to do this demands payment after barely evading Bert and summons El Blanco when Melvin refuses, and is eaten by El Blanco before he can do anything else. Melvin is discovered by Bert, who scolds him despite Melvin maintaining his innocence. Back in town, everyone accepts Tyler as part of the Perfection family. And one of my favorite lines from Bert after scolding Melvin with a little turd, always count on plausible deniability. Let's see. Episode 2 is Shriek and Destroy. Before we begin, properly, a word from our sponsor. Okay. Episode 2, Shriek and Destroy. Bert and Tyler are contracted and semi-forced by Twitchell to go to Juniper, Arizona and eradicate a herd of Shriekers that has appeared. This episode seemingly takes a lot of influence from the original Tremors 2 script. But when the Fish and Wildlife Services send their top agent in, the operative dismisses Bert and Tyler from their job and heads to take out the remaining Shriekers. After successfully killing 5, the operative takes the sole surviving Shrieker to a grain mill to be guarded until armed transport arrives to take it for study. At the town's Pioneer Day festival, the operative informs Twitchell of his success, but Bert and Tyler become enraged when they learn of what he did. After scolding the operative, Bert heads to the mill, where the agent is eaten by the now army of Shriekers before escaping into a large pipe. Bert figures out that it leads to the fair, but he and Tyler run out of ammunition. This prompts them to head to the house in town that has a famous gun collection, but it turns out to be a massive stockpile of Civil War muskets. But when a local baseball team shows up at this house, Bert organizes them into a firing squad that successfully kills all of the Shriekers. Bert returns to Perfection, where Nancy names the recording of their adventure Shriek and Destroy, to which case Bert responds positively with catchy. And Tyler is grilled by Jody and Rosalina for being distracted by Miss Juniper while recording and being punched in the face by her boyfriend. Episode 3 is Blast from the Past. Things start going screwy when Tyler finds a foot near the side of the road and a hang glider torn to pieces. Later, Bert and Tyler discover a delivery truck and the remains of a man who is supposed to be delivering Nancy's new pottery kiln. With these attacks, Bert deduces that an ass blaster is on the loose. However, before he and Tyler can go to work and kill the thing, 2 people from Las Vegas arrive. They reveal themselves to be hired hands for Sigmund and Ray, the magicians to whom Nancy sold the ass blaster to in Tremors 3 Back to Perfection to recover their ass blaster named Messerschmitt, after poachers had failed to kidnap it. However, they severely screw up their first attempt to capture the ass blaster, and one of the hired hands is nearly killed. Realizing it is now too smart to be fooled by a ground trap, Bert decides to use a hang glider to launch a snack for Messerschmitt. They end up successful and tie up Messerschmitt. Bert hands it over to Sigmund and Ray's hired hands to be returned to Las Vegas. Episode 4, named Hit and Run. A Las Vegas mobster brings his disbelieving friend Frank to Perfection to see El Blanco in person. However, this backfires on him when he goes too far in trying to bring El Blanco out and ends up being eaten alive. To make matters worse, he held the key to a bank vault his mob was planning to rob. Frank vows vengeance on El Blanco and to retrieve the key after calling in backup from a sinister member of the mob being played by Michael Rooker. However, things backfire yet again for the third mobster when El Blanco accidentally launches a harpoon through him due to Bert interfering with their attempt. Frank vows to get the key back and tries again to kill El Blanco, but he is driven away by Bert. However, Frank is stuck to a rope El Blanco swallowed and is being dragged along as his punishment. Bert and Tyler later find evidence that he has escaped. Episode 5, Project 412. The story of the Perfectionites' first meeting with Cletus Poffenberger, played by Christopher Lloyd. When Project 412 escapes and runs wild in the valley, Cletus, Bert, and Tyler hunt down the beast. In the meantime, Cletus reveals that 412 was a creature he created using Mixmaster, and that his violent outbursts were from a lack of a certain chemical he could no longer find due to the violent natures of the animals 412 was made up of. After a long hunt, Bert is forced to kill 412 with a homemade flamethrower A-Team style, much to Cletus's dismay. 412 is given a proper burial by the townsfolk, hoping to cheer Cletus up a bit and allowing him to join the town's population. Episode 6, if I can find it. Here we are, Ghost Dance. Rosalina encounters a green cloud in an abandoned silver mine and thinks that it is a ghost, while her hired hand believes it to be the coyote spirit. However, after miners are found to be severely dehydrated, Bert, Twitchell, and Tyler investigate the mine to discover the gas themselves. Barely managing to escape from the cloud by using a bottle of water as a decoy, everyone regroups, and Cletus, who previously worked in a laboratory near where the cloud is, deduces that it is a hydrophilic bacteria that was a project of the lab that created Mixmaster. However, after it was boarded up, it must have come into contact with Mixmaster, a compound that blends non-human DNA originally used to create living weapons for the government. Knowing that it will be drawn to the town for moisture, they decide to trap it in a special container using a makeshift vacuum cleaner built by Tyler and Cletus because the National Guard has been sent to evacuate all the townsfolk before a special surgical strike from a napalm bombing occurs. The bacteria creature is invulnerable to bacterial poisons and can now only be destroyed by intense heat, being a silicone-based life form. Jody and Rosalita stall them by summoning El Blanco and using him to block the road. Thanks to a distraction by Nancy and Cletus, the men are able to finish the makeshift device, and Tyler sucks the creature in. They then have Twitchell send it away for proper government storage. However, Cletus brings bad news as the cloud spread Mixmaster throughout the area. It traversed, and soon the wildlife and plant life will mutate into new creatures. Episode 7, Night of the Shriekers, my personal favorite episode of the whole series. A government team in perfection is training Shriekers for rescue missions. But a storm shuts out the devices controlling them, and the Shriekers run rampant, killing most of the team. The three Shriekers multiply, and each original Shrieker leads its own group. The Perfectionites prepare to hunt down the Shriekers before they can multiply or get out of the valley, but are resisted by the project's lead scientist, who wishes to recapture them instead. Knowing better, the locals lure the creatures into a trap at Bert's home and start killing them. The scientist, however, destroys Bert's ammunition to stop them. This forces Nancy, Twitchell, and Jody to flee the safe room, but end up stuck there thanks to a bullet wedged in its hinge. The scientist flees to her truck, where she tries to coax one of the Shriekers into it. However, its control collar is unresponsive, causing it to kill her and her driver. The last group tries to sneak up Bert's escape tunnel after trying to dig down into the bunker. After learning this due to a Shrieker tearing into the safe room from the tunnel, Nancy throws a bomb into the tunnel, killing the last of the Shriekers and miraculously freeing everyone from inside the escape tunnel. Episode 8, A Little Paranoia Among Friends. Over the last 6 months, people in Toluca, New Mexico, led by radio personality Cecil Carr, have believed that aliens are responsible for the disappearances. However, it is actually a graboid going around eating people. But knowing better than the idiotic townsfolk, Twitchell sends Bert and Tyler to investigate. However, the townspeople think it is a government conspiracy. They think a government conspiracy is going on, and Bert has been sent as a government plant to cover it up. This wounds Bert greatly, as he hates the government just as much as they do. Bert takes his mind off this by imagining his maiden voyage with his M82A2 Barrett 50 caliber sniper rifle, but still has to be put up with the UFO crazed locals' misguided prejudice and downright stupid rules about aliens. The townsfolk go as far as disabling the seismographs Bert sets up to track the Graboid, believing them to be some kind of government devices to repel aliens. Ultimately, Tyler makes up a story that the Graboid is an evil alien and in a final showdown. Tyler kills it with Bert's Barrett 50, leaving Bert very disappointed. The people of the town accept them as heroes, and Bert goes along with their paranoia of him being a government agent while accepting their thanks. At the same time, threatening Tyler never to mention this to anyone again. Let's see. Ooh, here it is. Flora or Fauna. Flora or Fauna, Episode 9. An overeager tourist named Larry Norval wants to see El Blanco, even going as far as to rent out an entire trip for himself, but is met with disappointment. Meanwhile, the Perfectionites discover a strange plant-animal hybrid created by Mixmaster, as well as a government team sent to study Mixmaster's effects on the valley. However, some of the team are killed by the highly powerful stomach acid of this hybrid monster, leaving only their skeletons behind. At the end of the episode, Larry asks Cletus about time travel experiments, a nod to Christopher Lloyd's previous role as Doc Brown of Back to the Future fame, as they seem to get along well while talking about the concept. The Mixmaster plant is finally killed by Tyler using poison just before it can spread seeds. But one seed survives in Larry's car. However, when it falls to the ground, it's squashed underfoot by Bert, destroying the mutant plant for good and emitting a Bertism from Bert. Sloppy. Episode 10 is Graboid Rights. Animal rights activists, including Nancy's college dropout daughter Mindy, played by a different actress, looking a lot like either Scarlett Johansson or Natalie Portman, arrive in Perfection to force the townspeople to leave, thinking they are harming El Blanco by being there. Meanwhile, El Blanco starts going mad for some unknown reason, even going to territories it normally avoids. It is ultimately revealed that one of the activists was poisoning El Blanco to prove her story for the head of the activists, but El Blanco accidentally swallows a mega dose of the poison when he eats the lackey who had been leaving the poison out and beaches himself in town to die. Bert and the doctor manage to create an antidote, and El Blanco is saved by Mindy, who tosses it into his mouth with her softball skills. With El Blanco saved, the activists leave town, and Mindy is returned to college after dumping the activist leader, whom Twitchell had arrested for all the acts of vandalism and sabotage he had committed. Episode 11, which is Water Hazard. We're almost done here, guys. Melvin has opened a golf course near Bixby called the Oasis, but its lagoons are filled with water stolen from Perfection Valley's water table and are contaminated with Mixmaster, which create a giant prehistoric type brine shrimp that kills 3 people. Tyler and Rosalina get involved when, in desperate need of money, Rosalina takes a job at the golf course, and Tyler, in the same situation, does the same, investigating the creature. Ow. Tyler is blamed for the deaths of 2 police officers and spends the night in jail due to the ignorance and the lack of monsters existing. Due to the ignorance of the fact of monsters existing. There he encounters the driver who stole the water, who reveals to him where he got it. Eventually, Bert gets to the sheriff, who's an old friend of his, to let Tyler go, but is furious that Tyler tried to take care of the situation without him. Tyler ends up having to deal with it himself while Bert is gone and lays a trap with Rosalina and Twitchell's help in the river and kills the monster shrimp with dry ice, as they cannot afford to let it get into the rest of Bixby's water and contaminating it. Twitchell even helps by driving his car into the river to create a barrier against the shrimp. Afterwards, Rosalina yells at Tyler and Bert, reminding them that they are partners and have not been acting as such. The two men make up, and Bert, who has earned a lot of money from a lecture he just gave, refuses half the reward money, saying Tyler earned it. The two then remind Rosalina that only the three of them know the truth about where Melvin's Mixmaster contaminated water came from, and he would be desperate to cover that up. Rosalina then uses this to blackmail Melvin for thousands of dollars in the end, sticking it to Melvin up his stupid ass. Episode 12, The Sounds of Silence. Mixmaster has created a deadly swarm of mutated insects that infest the valley and kill a herd of horses and 2 construction workers. Making matters worse, El Blanco is both driven away and kept away by the high-pitched sound the swarm of bugs make to disorient their prey before devouring it. Being extra sensitive to high-frequency sounds, El Blanco heads toward the base of the mountains to stay alive. Meanwhile, since Bert is out of town, Tyler must work with a woman who seems to have a lot in common with the survivalist, even though she claims they would dislike each other in person. Also, Larry is back, apparently to stay, and working together, the three trap the bugs in road tar using termite mating calls and kill them by lighting them on fire with gasoline. As a said nuisance, the townsfolk have to put up with Larry, who has decided to move to perfection as it suits his taste in weirdness. After Larry helps kill the bugs, Nancy allows him to stay in Mindy's old room for a while, but plans to kick him out when he cannot find and or build a place of his own. In the final episode, The Key, episode 13, Frank the Mobster returns to perfection to continue his quest to kill El Blanco and retrieve the key he swallowed. I'm pretty sure that he would have shit the key out by now, but whatever. Along with Dolores, Max's old wife, and now his girlfriend, and an inventor Dolores is tricking into helping them with a sonic weapon to stun El Blanco. Meanwhile, Larry encounters a strange creature in a barn and calls it an invisibat, as it exists but cannot be seen. In the final battle, Dolores is driven to El Blanco by Larry, and the invisibat is eaten alive while Frank runs away. He gets picked up by a mobster and is brought to Chicago to be killed for his incompetence in failing a single mission. Oh, meanwhile, Larry finds the key in Graboid dung and puts it in a collection of metal detector findings, unaware of its true value. Duh. I've only seen this episode twice, so I forgot about that. Seemingly ending the series, not necessarily on a cliffhanger, but the ending of the episode definitely implies that, okay, yeah, there's definitely was more planned to come, but the unfortunate cancellation of this show, we just never got to see the rest of that, sadly. With all that being said, see, I'd like to review more TV shows, but going through each episodic plot can be a tad bit of a chore. But still, what do I think of these plots? Well, it serves as a very good continuation of the Tremors franchise, taking it to television form, which I think it could be suited for very well. But also it introduces new concepts to the Perfection Tremors lore that don't clash with the established Graboid Shrieker Ass Blaster stuff. This new side of Perfection Valley that's introduced does seemingly fit pretty well with the intermingling of Graboids and Shriekers. It doesn't feel like two separate shows crammed together into one to make it one. They feel right at home with each other, and there's a lot of ideas and concepts here that I think are very, very refreshing. While still giving Tremors fans what they want. There's plenty of Graboid action, there's plenty of Shrieker action, and there's a little bit of Ass Blaster action. So it definitely does function very good as a continuation of the Tremors franchise. And honestly, I think any Tremors fan would be very happy with this show. I also love the look of this show. This isn't necessarily an added pro, but I just love the look. It looks like a 2003 Sci-Fi Channel show, but in a good way. It makes you nostalgic for the early years of the Sci-Fi Channel when they were when they were actually putting out, they had limited resources at their disposal, but they still gave it their all. They were there for like the cult show or movie watchers. And this just has the early 2000s sci-fi charm all over it. Some people may see that as a negative. I see it as a positive. It makes me nostalgic for my early years and when I first saw this show on TV at Austin's place, because it looks very similar to a lot of seasons of Power Rangers that were coming on at the time. And I would watch this weird comparison. I'd watch Power Rangers and then I'd watch Tremors the series, and they looked exactly the same, and that always made me happy. Um, so yeah, great plots. Well, most of them. There's a couple episodes that I don't like. As stated in my ranking the Tremors the series episodes, my 3 least favorite episodes are the last 3: Water Hazard, Sounds of Silence, and The Key. Sounds of Silence and The Key greatly suffer from the fact that Michael Gross is not in them. He was busy doing Tremors 4 at the time. They explain why he's not there in a fairly good way, but still, it definitely suffers from the lack of Michael Gross. And the episode Water Hazard is just kind of meh and boring. It has a cool monster, but we don't really get a good look at it, and we don't. It's just kind of blah. This was definitely, in my opinion, the first sign. Like, Water Hazard was the first episode to really show signs of wear and tear, and the Sounds of Silence was the first major red flag of showing that the show was in trouble. Sadly, and then The Key is just ass. So with all, let's get into some pros and cons for Tremors the series. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 8 pros for Tremors the series. Pro number 1 is Burt Gummer, once again, of course, played by Michael Gross. Michael Gross returns, and of the Stampede era, this is my favorite Michael Gross portrayal for Burt Gummer. He's great in the first 3 movies. He, of course, is good as Hiram Gummer. But as far as, like, this show, in my opinion, features the pinnacle and the epitome of Michael Gross playing Burt Gummer as this, literally, and this is quoted in Tremors the series in the first episode, an antisocial paramilitary paranoid. He's very fun to watch. He goes into a lot of anti-government conspiracy theory rants. They're a lot of fun to watch because you just like, oh yeah, that's definitely Bert. And he's constantly spouting off survival tips and survival techniques, and just saying I'm right and you're wrong, and this is true and this is true and that's not true, that's a lie. And he's so much fun to watch, and his chemistry with the rest of the cast, you can tell that it's almost like a love-hate relationship with the rest of the cast. Like, Bert is seen by so many people as just being so annoying, yet when a life or death situation comes to him, they're always there to run towards him and ask him for help. And he's glad to help, of course, because that's what he always wants to do. He wants to protect people from monsters. But yeah, Michael Gross does an absolutely phenomenal job as Burt Gummer in this show. It's the peak of its awesomeness in the Stampede era. I still say that Michael Gross's best performance as Burt is in Tremors 5, but here it's still very, very strong and a lot of fun to watch. Michael Gross is always a pleasure to watch as Burt Gummer, but still here it's especially special. Pro number 2 is Tyler, played by Victor Brown. Again, I believe this was the only thing that Victor Brown ever did as far as acting goes. I don't think there's a page for him. Yeah, no, there isn't, sadly. But Tyler is a couple things. It's very obvious that Tyler is supposed to be a replacement for like either another Kevin Bacon or another Jack from Tremors 3. I mean, he literally buys Jack's business, the tour business. He does look kind of similar to Sean Christian and a little bit similar to Kevin Bacon. It's just his type of character. He's not dumb, but he's just the simple-minded redneck, as he calls himself in the show. Though one reason why I think he's the best of all three, one, and looking back on the original Tremors, you can't deny Val is an idiot. He's a very uneducated man. He's just kind of a dumb redneck. Whereas Jack is the annoying con artist who is a pain in the ass. Tyler is the best of both worlds. He's not like a PhD, which there's some jokes added about that when the scientists are talking about scientific gobbledygook. There's a line that Tyler says that always cracks me up. Can you say that for all the people who forgot to earn their PhDs? um, but yeah, Tyler, I think, is a perfected version of, no pun intended, of what they were going for with Val and Jack. He's a redneck. He's a more simple guy. He's kind of a rogue / drifter, but he does have some more smarts to him than he gives off. And his chemistry with Burt Gummer is absolutely phenomenal. He's a good sidekick character. I'm pretty sure they were doing this kind of thing with Travis in Tremors 5 and 6 too. So there's that as well. But yeah, of all the sidekicks that Burt has had over the years, Tyler is hands down my favorite. He is a redneck. He doesn't really believe in a whole lot of the shit that Burt talks about, and he just kind of puts up with his anti-government rants too. But his chemistry and his camaraderie with Burt is still very strong. Like he's a very good ally. He's good at corralling Burt whenever he goes off on his tangents in public away from perfection. He's good at because it's very obvious that Burt is not very socially conscious. And then Tyler is there to kind of keep Burt in check and to keep him on the right track, as he's hired by W.D. Twitchell to do so in a couple episodes. And it just seems like a really good foil for Burt, but in a good way. They have strengths and weaknesses that balance each other out. So overall, I love Tyler. It also helps that he's good with guns. He is quick on his feet, and he's a quick learner. And whenever he does see a monster, he's always there by Burt's side trying to take it down and fight it. He's a really fun character, and I think aside from Burt, I think he's the best character in the show. It's a shame that he never did show up in later Tremors installments. Whatever, though. At least there's this. Pro number 3 is Cletus Poffenberger. Weird fucking name. Played by Christopher Lloyd. all the episodes that he's in. He's in 3: Flora and Fauna, Project 412, and Ghost Dance. My favorite of which being Flora and Fauna. I love this guy. Christopher Lloyd is good in anything that he's done. Christopher Lloyd has a great voice. He's a great actor. He's very witty. He's a very fast and smooth talker. Just anything that he does, he's a lot of fun to watch. And in this show, he's a total joy to watch. His chemistry with the Perfection Valley cast is very strong. He doesn't feel like an outcast. He doesn't feel like he sticks out like a sore thumb. He doesn't clash with them. He feels perfectly right at home in this show, and he's a very welcome addition to the cast. His chemistry with Bert is great. His chemistry with Nancy is great. And they do showcase that even though he's a little screwy up in the head, he is still a very intelligent scientist, and he very well adds his own knowledge of biochemistry into the show in order to solve whatever problem he's brought in to help with. Again, my favorite of which being the episode Flora and Fauna. It's very engaging watching Cletus interact with this new modern scientist. Could you talk any louder? It's a lot of fun watching the camaraderie go on between Cletus, who is a Vietnam era late 1960s, early 1970s biochemist, and then he takes his knowledge of the old days and then he mixes it with modern science, at least 2003 science. But the two don't clash. They help each other in order to solve a problem, and by combining their different expertises and using their knowledge to help each other out. It's very engaging, it's very well written, and it's a lot of fun. And of course, watching Christopher Lloyd be a compelling character, but also be an eccentric, borderline nut job is also fun too. You can tell that he's just been left out in the sun for a little bit too long, literally in Project 412. But yeah, I love Cletus, and I'll talk about the rest of the cast too. There's not a whole lot to say. Again, the only two returning cast members from Tremors 3 is Michael Gross as Bert, of course, and Robert Jane as Melvin Plug. To quickly talk about Melvin, he's just as unlikable. He's just as much of a little turd, which that phrase is actually it's coined in Tremors 3, but they take it and run with it in this show. Again, with the little turd, always count on plausible deniability. And Tyler also helps with that scene too at the end of Feeding Frenzy, when right after Bert says that, because what happened was Bert said, "You hired some guy to try to take out El Blanco." "I know what you're talking about." And then Melvin's goon was riding around on a dirt bike. He had just been swallowed by El Blanco. El Blanco spits out the inedible motorcycle, and it goes through the air, and it crashes right into Melvin's car, fucking up the windshield and fucking up the hood. And then Melvin's just like, "Some idiot biker gets swallowed. It's got nothing to do with me." Always count on plausible deniability. Bert walks away, and then Tyler just looks at him and gives him this "you deserve that" look. It's funny. That is another pro for this, or so I'll count this as another pro too. I'll talk about this in just a minute. Is the humor for this show. But the rest of the cast, again, only Robert and Michael came back. There's a new character too named Rosalina Sanchez, who is allegedly the niece of Miguel from Tremors 3, played by Gladys Jimenez. I think this is her only thing that she was ever in too. Nancy Sterngood is recast by Marcia Strassman. She played Nurse Margie Cutler on the show MASH, uh, and Diane Zelinsky in the film Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. She has since passed away since this show came out. She died of breast cancer, I believe. Leela Lee replaces Susan Chuang as Jody Chang. Not quite as annoying as she was in Tremors 3. She's a bit more tolerable. Of course, we have Dean Norris as W.D. Twitchell, the government agent that sends Bert on assignments all throughout the country to kill Graboids and Shriekers. And it's just kind of a thorn in everyone's ass, but he can be occasionally helpful. We have J.D. Walsh, who was Gordon in 2.5 Men. He's in Flora or Fauna, Project 412, The Sounds of Silence, and The Key as a recurring character. He's a little bit like Travis in Tremors 5 and 6. He's a huge fanboy type character, but he's way more annoying than Texas Guy Movie Reviews is here. Hey, what's up? He's way more annoying than both Travis and Grady from Tremors 2 combined, but he's oddly endearing because he's a big monster movie fan. So he adds his own knowledge of various different science fiction and monster movies to the table, and he can occasionally be helpful too. He actually stops the plant reptile hybrid monster in Flora or Fauna from spitting out its load of seeds by jumping over it and covering it with his coat at the very last minute, right as it was about to spit seeds. So that's cool. And he adds his own knowledge of giant bug movies in the episode Sounds of Silence. So those are a lot of fun to listen to. But overall, the rest of the cast, I actually agree with Trev and think Marcia Strassman was better as Nancy than Charlotte Stewart, I think her name was. She is still a little bit annoying, but she just seems to gel better with like this version at least seems to gel better with Bert. I just think overall her character is not nearly as annoying or unlikable. And again, Leela Lee, she does good as Jody. She's a bit more tolerable. She's still kind of squeaky and a little obnoxious and still always about the bottom dollar. But unlike Jody in Tremors 3, this one actually knows when to set that aside and actually take shit seriously and be helpful in a situation. So that's good at least. Pro number 4 is the show's humor. There's not that much to say about this, but there are some good jokes that are sprinkled throughout the show. There's some situational humor, like in the first episode, Tyler brings in a whole bunch of Chinese tourists to check out Chang's market, and he's speaking botched Mandarin to them, and he ends up calling them to quote, he said something to them in Mandarin. Then they all turn around and like gasp in shock and look and give him the stink eye. And Tyler's like, "What?" And then Jody says, "You just called them a bunch of monkey butts." um, that's funny. Another joke. I'm pretty sure this was intended as a joke. In Blast from the Past, hold on. When they're saying you need to get out your when Bert is saying you need to get out your blankets for the ass blaster to not see you, a whole bunch of people just put on their blankets inside the store, and then Bert says, "When you're outside," and then Tyler just goes, "We knew that," and then they all take them off. Pretty sure that's just intended as a joke, and it is funny. Um, There's a lot of moments of humor throughout this show that grow on me. Trying to think. What's another really funny one? Fuck, I can't think of another one. There are a lot of funny moments throughout this show. So like nothing that's like side-splittingly funny, but you'll get some good chuckles out of this show. With its humor. Like I think Trev's right. Definitely the whole franchise of Tremors definitely is sprinkled with humor all throughout. It's a good mix of comedy and horror. Pro number 5 is Mixmaster. I love this concept. Mixmaster it's introduced in Project 412. It was created during the Vietnam era, Vietnam War, to be used to create biological weapons, essentially hybrid monsters. It could be used to mix various different strands of animal DNA into these various hybrid monsters to be used as weapons. Uh, Project 412 himself is a combination of a rhino, a swishback spider, and a wolverine. And its various powers are X-ray vision, which is a weapon thing, infrared vision, again a weapon thing. It uses its giant nose horn to gore and impale its prey. It has the overall body of a wolverine, but it's kind of scaly and it has a kind of an armored exoskeleton. That's the spider influences, and it when it's swallowed actually by El Blanco, it secretes a nasty green goo that has a nasty smell and taste, causing El Blanco to spit it out. So 412 is a cool creation. Mixmaster overall, it's a really fascinating concept that could have introduced a whole bunch of new monsters into this show's mythos to even more so fill out its mythos and even more so turn Perfection Valley into what I like to call a Garden of Eden of monsters. And it's explained in the show that Perfection Valley's natural barriers keep it contained. So it's like this one area where there's just a shit ton of monsters that will never escape. The cliffs, mountains, and cliffs to the north, mountains to the east and west, and just miles and miles of nothing to the north or to the south. It's a really fascinating concept, and it could have been used to again not only expand the mythos, but give us a lot more really cool monsters to showcase throughout the series. It's just a shame it got canceled. But in a pro I'll talk about in just a little bit, we still do have some good ones at our disposal. Pro number 6, yeah, is the musical score. The music was done by Steve Dorff, who is mostly a country singer or a country songwriter and composer. Oh, he's the father of Steven Dorff, who was what's was he dead? Oh yeah, he was Deacon Frost in Blade. Yeah, but really, he died? Oh no, he's alive. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, he's mostly a country guy. He did movies like Waltz Across Texas, Honky Tonk Man, Rustler's Rhapsody, and he did do My Best Friend is a Vampire, which is a comedy horror film. Yeah, he did a lot of like country movies. But anyway, yeah, the music for Tremors the series is really really good. Also agree with Trev that I definitely think the music that like the opening credits music for Tremors the series is the most fitting overall theme of the franchise. None of this music is reused in the subsequent films, but I think it was here when Tremors finally got its own theme song. Um, one sec. Not much to say about it. A lot of the music is really good. It has that kind of southern Texas twang to it that is all throughout the rest of the Tremors franchise. It sounds like more southern, Wild West almost type music, but it's very fitting and it's a lot of fun to listen to. So not much to say about that. But yeah, the music score is good. Pro number 7. Wait, hang on. Yeah. Pro number 7 is all the monsters showcased. We have 3 episodes that are well, 2 of them that are purely Graboid centric. Of course, we have El Blanco as the main threat in Feeding Frenzy. Then we have a little Paranoia Among Friends where there's just a Graboid going around killing people. And then El Blanco and the Invisibat are in the key. So there's technically 2 monsters, but the Invisibat's pretty minor. We have 2 Shrieker episodes, Shriek and Destroy and Night of the Shriekers, and those are my 2 favorites because I love the Shriekers. We have 1 Ass Blaster episode, Blast from the Past, which is a really, really good one. But all the various hybrid monsters that are showcased throughout this show are really, really cool to varying levels. We have the Bacteria Cloud and Ghost Dance, which is somewhat threatening, but I don't like feel it's as threatening. Like it's not a very like cool monster to look at. It's just a wispy, wavy, tentacly green cloud that just looks kind of eh. We have this is probably my favorite being the giant hybrid animal plant monster thing that looks and feels like something out of Day of the Triffids, a movie about giant killer plants. But it's a really really cool concept. It's like an Amazonian pitcher plant, a Venus flytrap, and a giant fungus reptilian animal giant plant monster thing. It's really really cool, and how it kills people is that it has acid sacs that they call it. That are this is where the Venus flytrap thing comes from. If anything steps on a vine, it causes the sac to constrict itself and spit out a powerful acid that melts people to their skeletons in about 15 seconds. It's gory as hell. Next we have excuse me. There's 4 episodes that are purely Graboid centric because then there's also Hit and Run where El Blanco is the only monster threat here. Project 412, we have 412, the Spider Wolverine Rhino hybrid, as I talked about. Okay, no, never mind. There's 5 Graboid episodes. Excuse me. Can you tell I know the show? Yeah, 5 episodes about just Graboids, because then there's also Graboid Rights. There's The Sounds of Silence, which has a swarm of mutated insects that are hybrids of maggots, crickets, and cicadas. That they and termites. They eat wood, but they also eat meat. This is where the maggots come in from. Then finally, there's Water Hazard. This is the one, it has a cool monster, but you barely see any of it. It's a giant mutated prehistoric shrimp that tears people apart, though you barely see that happen. But still, all the monsters showcased, of course, the familiar ones from the previous Tremors movies, Graboids, Ass Blasters, and especially Shriekers, are very well showcased, and all those episodes are really good. But the various Mixmaster monsters, to varying levels, are, in my opinion, really cool. Again, my favorite is the Flora and Fauna monster. I just feel like that's the biggest threat. It's literally a plant, but it has reptilian traits. Um, and while you kind of could avoid it, I've always found the concept of man-eating plants or like sentient plants to be kind of creepy. Um, and this mutant plant is a really cool monster. Moving on, the action scenes throughout this show, there's quite a bit, especially in the Shrieker episodes and a couple of the Graboid episodes. The action scenes are a lot of fun. There's some good shootouts. There's some good gunplay. It's a lot of fun, especially in the two Shrieker episodes, watching Bert and Tyler mow down Shriekers left and right and just blow them to pieces. It's well edited, it's well choreographed, and the effects are great. And the gun choreography is pulled off very well, in my opinion. There's no like hand-to-hand combat fight scenes, unfortunately, or at least there's very little. But that's still done all right. It's mostly just gunplay or monster chase scenes or monster killing scenes, and those are a lot of fun too. And the last pro that I have is the special effects. The effects were not done by Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff Jr. This was the first Tremors show to be done by K&B Effects, Greg Nicotero and such. And the effects are really, really solid, in my opinion. All the Graboid and Shrieker and Ass Blaster props look phenomenal. They look just the same as they were in the previous movies. El Blanco is showcased through both CGI and practicals. All the practical shots of El Blanco look really good. The best of them, which being in the episode Graboid Rights, where you see, I don't think it was like a full-on Graboid puppet, but there was a large, full-scale Graboid animatronic that they had sticking out of the ground, and it looks very, very good. Unlike in Tremors 3, the tentacles are white or like a whitish gray color, showcasing that he is indeed an albino Graboid. He's dirty and slimy, and he actually does still have his spines, as the CG model does too. El Blanco looks really good. All the practical Shriekers look really, really good. They're well detailed, and they move around a bit smoother than they did in Tremors 2. As Trev stated in our Tremors 2 review, they made an effort to make them more convincingly move when they're practical. Like you show them, they show them walking. You don't see their legs move on screen. There is a shot in Night of the Shriekers where you see under a car, you see a Shrieker's feet walking along. And in also Night of the Shriekers, you do see a guy leading a Shrieker with a heat wand. You can see it moving. You can see its thighs moving, but you don't see its feet moving. But still, they make an effort to make the Shriekers a bit more seamless. The Ass Blaster is probably the one that has the least amount of practical shots. You see the puppet for its head move around a fair bit, and you do see a couple shots where it's a full-on practical Ass Blaster, but it only moves its head and its wings. But that's all that they needed it to do in those shots. But still, they look great. And the rest of the practical effects for the various monsters that are practical look really, really great. The Flora and Fauna monster, I'm pretty sure is... No, It's not all practical. But it's mostly practical. But it's slimy and gooey and nasty to look at. Um, 412 is mostly CGI. There's one prop that they have where it's like a GoPro on the side of 412's head, and it's just a prop of its horn going around and stabbing things. Other than that, 412 is most. Sorry, my nose itches. Fuck. 412 is mostly CGI, but still, it looks fine. And yeah, overall, and I will say too, this is probably the goriest of the entire Tremors franchise. Tremors 5 is probably the goriest movie, but it just counting the whole franchise, I would say this is definitely the goriest of the whole series. Whenever someone's killed by a monster, it's very violent and gory and bloody. Like both Shrieker episodes, whenever somebody gets killed, they're literally just stripped to the bone and there's blood all over the place. When people are killed by the Flora and Fauna monster, the acid melts them down to bloody skeletons in minutes, and it's goopy and slimy and gnarly. Even the people killed by the shrimp in Water Hazard, there's a fair bit of blood and carnage along with that too. Probably the tamest episode is Ghost Dance, definitely, because whenever people are killed by the bacteria cloud, they're essentially mummified. All the moisture is sucked out of their entire body, and they're just left literally dried husks. The effect is good, and like the appearance of people who are mummified is gross and gnarly, but in terms of just pure gore, Ghost Dance is definitely the most tame. Overall, though, the gore in this show is top notch. It's probably the goriest of the series. Also, when animals are killed, like burros and cows and such, and horses, they're left as dismembered limbs and bloody skeletons. Overall, though, the gore is great, and the special effects are very, 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 very good. This was KMB's first attempt. It was one of only two, sadly. I kind of wish that KMB could have done more, but still, what they show here, the effects look like a TV show, or like they look like they were done for a TV show, but for TV show effects, I think they're pretty top notch. Um, I love the effects in this movie. They look great. With all these good things to say about Tremors the series, surprisingly, I have only one's a nitpick, but I have two main cons with this show. Actually, no, two of them are kind of nitpicks. So the first nitpick is God, this show is too short. This show is so miserably short. It's so good. By the time it's over, it leaves you wanting more. You're just like, oh man, you could have done so much more. And there's so much that they could have done with this series. I've always maintained that they should have at least finished this season because it was canceled after half a season. So presumably that means there would have been a 26 episode season planned. If they had to cancel it after that one season, I still would have wanted more, but I do also believe that for a TV series, Tremors is a bit limited. So I think if you were to just give it a 26 episode run and then go back to doing movies, that would have been perfectly fine. And because each episode ranges from 39 to, or all episodes except one are 44 or 43 minutes long. Sadly, Shriek and Destroy is the only one that's 39 minutes long. But still, each episode is about 45 minutes long. So if you have 26 45-minute long episodes, that would have been the perfect run for this show. As it currently stands, though, however, there's only 13, unfortunately, which I think is bullshit. If they had just finished this season, it would have been just fine. Still, though, what we have is really, really, really good. The diehard Tremors fan in me the diehard Tremors fan in me, though, just keeps screaming, more! Just like I hope there's a Tremors 8 on the way sometime soon. Just like Brendan Tenold's Godzilla fans. When's the next one? Nitpick number 2. Sometimes the CGI in this show isn't that great. I have said in the past that the CGI in this show is awful. Rewatching the show, though, excuse me, I've actually come to realize for a TV show, the CG in this show isn't bad, actually. It looks like a 2003 Sci-Fi Channel show, but still, the CG models, I think, look a lot better than Tremors 3 and especially Tremors 2. Like the Shrieker models that they have are actually pretty well detailed and they move around pretty well. They don't look stiff and they don't look like melted latex. Again, it's low budget 2003 Sci-Fi Channel CGI, but still, for what it is, I don't think it's bad. Still, though, there are a lot of times where the CG looks 2003 as fuck and it looks cartoony and dated. Thankfully, though, it is a good mix of, like, there is still a lot of practical effects in this show. And the CG is mostly used still as a supplementary tool. For the most part, there are still some monsters that are either almost entirely or completely CGI. Like the bacteria cloud in Ghost Dance is all CGI. Project 412 is 99% CGI. And let's see. The bugs in Sounds of Silence are also 99% CGI. And the practical effects for the bugs are kind of crappy. Whenever it is a practical bug, it's usually a dead one. And it's just like a little plastic piece carved in the shape of what the bugs are supposed to look like, covered in some slime and gore. So that's a little lame. The Graboids in this show, mostly El Blanco, but also the Graboid in A Little Paranoia Among Friends, are also about they're like 90% CGI. There is some good practical shots, but they definitely are mostly CGI. But the CGI model also for the Graboids, in my opinion, looks really, really good. They looked better than what it looked like in Tremors 3. El Blanco is actually albino or white for one. Most of the time, there's one shot where he looks brown, but mostly he is white, and his tentacles look really good, and they include the spines on his body, unlike in Tremors 3. Yeah, the effects are really good. It's a good mix of CGI and or I already said that. It's a good mix of CGI and practical. Still, though, the CGI, it's hit or miss. Sometimes it's good for what the show is. Like the CGI is never great, but there are some moments where it looks 2003 and dated as fuck. That one, though, you can kind of take it or leave it. The biggest problem with this show, in my opinion, which is con number 3, is some of the editing is pretty nauseating. I think this was kind of a common thing that was done for two sci-fi monster movies at the time. Is that, well, sure, you have practical effects, but the editing and how the monsters are shown is very televised, or it's just very. So what they would do a lot of times when monsters would attack, the camera gets all really super up close and personal, and there's a lot of quick cuts and shaky cam, and sometimes it's just kind of hard to tell what's going on. Feeding Frenzy does this, as does Shriek and Destroy. Not Shriek and Destroy. Night of the Shriekers. Sadly, like whenever people get killed by Shriekers in Night of the Shriekers, there's a quick zoom up and a freeze frame, and the screen turns negative for some reason. And also, a lot of times when people are swallowed by graboids, people will try to jump in and save them. Again, there's a lot of smoke and dust and a lot of close up, shaky cam editing going on. And it's kind of annoying and it's a bit distracting whenever it happens. This might have been done intentionally, not to hide the effects, but like just to make the scene look hectic and crazy. The original Kamen Rider, this is not, however, so it's just kind of a problem. This also can be kind of nitpicky because you can just kind of learn to deal with it. Not every episode does this, thankfully, still, but sometimes it's a little annoying. If you really just ignore it and push past it and just watch the show, it's somewhat tolerable, but at times the editing in this show is pretty ass. That's really all I have to say about Tremors the series. This was probably the longest Tremors review full on of this whole retrospective, but still. As stated, I love Tremors the series. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. It's my second favorite installment of the Tremors franchise, and is the most underrated installment of the entire Tremors franchise. It really is a shame that this show got axed so quickly, or not quickly, so early in its run. And it is a shame that it's just the one part of the franchise that the Tremors fan base either just isn't aware of as much as it should be, or they're just choosing to ignore it. It's a real shame, which is why I will be giving this show a solid 9 out of 10. I absolutely adore this show. Again, one of my favorite TV shows of all time. As soon as I start the first episode, I have to watch it all the way through. It is a very entertaining show, and it's a very easy show to watch. So I highly, highly, highly recommend Tremors fans check this out if they still have not seen it. And if you are navigating the Tremors franchise, do not skip this over. I highly, highly, highly recommend it. It may be, some people have criticized it for straying away from the core monsters. I don't think that's necessarily true because this show does introduce new aspects of the Tremors mythos. Andrew, definitely get around to seeing it. But when it does reuse its previous monsters, some of their episodes are some of the best of the whole show. Both the Shrieker episodes are great, and Graboid Rights and Feeding Frenzy are probably my two favorite Graboid episodes of this show. Yeah, I highly recommend this show. It's a very entertaining, very easy, very underrated show, or easy to watch, and a very underrated show. Yeah, Tremors the series gets a 9 out of 10. I love it. Post your comments down below and let me know what you think. Hit the like button and hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends. Look forward next week to when I review the seemingly final Tremors film, and I give it a re-review, Tremors Shrieker Island. Look forward to that. And as always, if you're out in the middle of a sci-fi channel looking bare bones town and you see a big dirt hump coming towards you, don't run, you'll get eaten. But look out for Mixmaster. And I will see you guys in the next video.